welcome to All the Stitches. This is a channel where I talk about quilting, knitting, cross-stitch, needlework, and whatever crafty things I'm up to. My name is Colleen, and I'm coming to you from the Lakes region of New Hampshire in the United States. You know, I haven't been with you in quite a while, and it's just been with the holidays and all the craziness of the world and so forth. I just didn't quite have it in me to make a new episode. But here we go. This is episode 16 already, and it's going to be about sort of a mishmash of things. I have some knitting to show you. I have some sewing to show you. And I have a start of a new pair of socks to show you. In addition to that, I'm going to talk about my Make 9 list for 2021. I'm not usually someone who makes lists or who makes resolutions, so we'll see how this goes, but I thought it might help to focus myself a little bit about the things that I want to accomplish in 2021. On top of that, I have my usual Something Old segment, and then we have something fun. I'm going to have a giveaway, and this is a first for me. Hopefully I'll have more in the future too, but this is a giveaway with a little twist, so stay tuned for that. I'll tell you all about it. But now I'm going to get right to it. I'm going to get right to my finishes because I think I have a lot to talk about today, so here we go. My first finish is my Advent socks. I should have put them on blockers, but here they are. This is the yarn from the Cozy Knitter. It's her 2020 Advent stripe sock or sock yarn. And I did a stripe. I started from the top and I did a stripe every day for 24 days leading up to Christmas. That was so much fun, and this yarn is so beautiful. Her colors are just spectacular. They match and everything. So you got two different skeins of yarn, or two of the same skeins of yarn, so you could match them up. I just knit the tubes and then added the toes and then went back and did an afterthought heel. But this was my first finish of 2021, and I absolutely love them. My next finish is, guess what? Another pair of socks. So this was actually my Christmas Eve cast on. I literally did, I have to turn it so you don't see my mistake. I literally started these Christmas Eve, and I loved working on them so much that I just could not stop. And really, I think I had these done in 7 days or something, which is really good for me. It takes me a lot longer to knit a pair of socks. And it was my first time with colorwork socks. As you can see, the heel is just great. It was a challenge. I hadn't knit colorwork flat, and you know, you knit a heel flap flat, and so it was a good learning experience to knit that little snowflake. But oh my gosh, I loved working on these so much I couldn't stop. And let me tell you about them. The pattern is Winter Deer Socks, and it's by Stone Knits. The yarn, the red yarn, is an old one I dug deep from the stash, and it is Plymouth Happy Feet. I do not know the color, but I suspect it's no longer. It was quite a while ago I bought it, so I suspect they don't make this particular color. Who knows? The gray on the toes and on the heels are is from West Yorkshire Spinners, and it's their signature 4-ply. And the white, I just have no idea. It was some fingering weight sock yarn that I had. And then I have, guess what? Another pair of socks. But I'm kind of cheating on these. This yarn, which is from Madeline Tosh, it's one of their sock yarns. I had it knit up, I want to say maybe a couple of years ago now. I had it knit up as a sock tube by Freckled Whimsy. She will knit, I'm not sure if she's doing it now, I didn't go back and check, She has a sock machine. You can either buy yarn from her and have her knit them up in the tube, or send her your skeins of yarn, and she'll knit a tube. So I had this big long tube. You cut it. You have to get brave, and you and you cut into it, put it on the needles, and then figure out where you want your cuff and heel. It's an afterthought heel and toe. And I still have some part of a tube left. I just had her knit the whole skein of yarn. So I still have a good amount of tube left, and I was thinking I could make mittens or mitts, or even a little short sock. I'm not sure, but I'm just glad that I got these done, because I've been wanting to give it a try. This gray, once again, is the West Yorkshire Spinners Signature 4-ply. So my last knitting finish is this. This is the Flying Geese Cowl by Mary Jane Mucklestone. The yarn is just a Cascade 220 Superwash Merino. Really nice soft yarn. It's so squishy, I want to just wrap it around my neck. So I started this in an online class with Mary Jane Mucklestone. I believe it was in the fall. In that class, it was just a color work class. You know, I just didn't like the yarn I was using. It just seemed so stiff. I just wasn't happy with it. So I thought about it, and I ended up pulling it out. I think I just got past the first, I did the ribbing and the first group of geese. And, but I ended up pulling it out, and I got this Cascade instead, which is, you know, a much less expensive yarn, but really had good results. My next finish is a sewing finish, and I don't have it any longer because I gave it to my sister as a gift for Christmas. But I'm going to put up a picture of the habitation throw that I made for her, and I showed you way back because I finished it back in September. So you'll just see a little piece of it there on the screen. But what I decided to make for her also was this project bag. And it's just a simple drawstring bag. And she is a big fan of Outlander, the book and the series. So I found some fabric on Spoonflower that had this Outlander theme. Frankly, I don't watch it. I haven't watched it. So I had to just go with what they claim to be the Outlander theme. And I thought it was really pretty fabric. So I made her this drawstring bag, and I rolled up the habitation throw and put it in this bag. So she can store it there, or she can use the bag just to store something else. But I thought it was pretty, and she seemed to be happy with it. Talk about project bags. I made myself one. Here it is. In this bag is, I laugh when I see it. If you are a fan of the TV show Schitt's Creek, you will understand why this makes me laugh. This is fabric I also found on Spoonflower because I had to have a Schitt's Creek bag. So that you can see, if you know the characters, this is David, this is his sister Alexa. Up here is supposed to be Johnny Rose, the father. Here is Stevie. Here is Moira. This, you know, quite frankly, I'm not sure. I think this is the little church where David and, I've forgotten his name now, David's husband, where they got married. Here is Rosebud Motel. And there's all kinds of cute little things. There's roses. There's the famous line from Alexa, "Ew, David." There's wine. There's the rainbow heart. Best wishes, warmest regards was something that they always said. And I just thought it was so much fun. The lining and the top are black and white because if you watch, you know that Moira and David always wore black and white. And the reason I wanted to make this Schitt's Creek bag was that I got the yarn from Kirby Werby way back in the summer or the early fall. Here's Kirby Werby's 2020. She called it the Shitty SCHITTY 2020 Advent 24 quote based stripes. Oh, here's the yarn. And look at all those wonderful colors. What she did was she gave you a sheet of paper. I'm not going to open it all up because it is a paid for thing. There's David in the field there. And every color, when you do every stripe, you go back and refer to this page. And there's a quote from the show that for each color stripe. So it's really been, we have watched the show twice now through, and honestly, I could just go back and start from the beginning. So anyway, I showed you the yarn. Here's how the sock is coming. A nice, really bright striped yarn. I'm working on 2 at the same time, so I have to get caught up with my month, but I'm trying to knit at least 1 stripe a day. At this point, I've been doing more than that. As part of this package, when I got the yarn, when I pre-ordered the yarn, she gave you a stitch marker. It was made by Fangirl Fibers. Oops, turn around. And you can see what it says. Ew, David. So I have to hook that onto one of my socks. But isn't that a great idea? And it's so enjoyable to just go back and read the quote of the day and just remember. So that's why you can see the bag was one of my finishes. And I clearly needed to have this bag in order to work on these socks, right? Time for my Make 9 2021. And like I think I said in the opening, I am not someone who tends to do this kind of thing. I don't make lists. I just wing it. And that might be good and that might be bad. But in this case, I thought there is so much that I want to make. And this year, we still have this time that we have to be home and safe. And so I'm really going to take advantage of this time. Pretty much like I already have, but I want to be more focused. So I thought I'd give it a shot and make a Make 9 list for 2021. And I had grand plans. I was actually going to do 3 different Make 9 lists. I was going to have a knitting list, a quilting list, and a needlework list. But you know what? It's too much like work. And I'm retired. I don't want to work that hard. So what I decided to do, as far as this list is concerned, I decided to do 3 quilting, 3 needlework, and 3 knitting. So I'm going to show you each of them and talk just a little bit about each one. And then at the end of the year, we shall see how I did, okay? So first, my needlework. It turns out the things that I really want to finish all happen to be counted cross stitch. Number 1 is called Generosity, and it's by the Drawn Thread. I picked this up a few years ago at a needlework show and just loved it so much. But you know what? It calls for a very small, I think a 28 count linen. And I have found, disappointingly, that I just can't see that tiny, tiny linen. It's just not fun to struggle to find every stitch. So I decided to put it on something bigger. Here is what I decided to put it on. I don't have the packaging to know what this is, but it's an Aida cloth. Let me do this. It is an Aida cloth, and it is, I know it's not 14 count, it's smaller. It could be 16. I do not believe it's 18. So I'm pretty sure it's 16 count. But that's how it looks, and I'm happy with it. I'm using 2 strands of floss. I think I'm going to be happy with it. I do know I came really too close to the side here, but there's still enough to turn this around or turn this over a backing or put a mat over it. So I didn't start again. So I think I'll be okay. Number 2 on the list, I made it easy on myself. I initially had 3 kind of complicated cross-stitch projects on my list, and then I said, you know, why? If I get through the 3 that I chose and I want to start something more complicated, then I can go for it, right? But I decided to go for these Lori Holt stitch cards for winter. Let's see the name on it. Well, I guess she just calls it Set C. So Set C is all these really cute little winter shapes. And I thought what I would do is put them, instead of each individual little tiny picture, I will put them all on one. So I'll have the set of 4 all on one piece of cloth. And I think that is very doable. I should be able to get to that before spring, maybe. So then my next one, I was so tempted to pick more winter. I do have several winter cross stitch patterns, and also a really nice embroidery pattern with snowmen. But once I'm in summer, I'll probably really want to stitch for fall. So I chose the Sweater Weather by Plum Street. You can see the pumpkins, the dogs, little dogs with sweaters. Well, I think this is cute, and this would be a fun one to just peck away at in the summer or late summer or into, fall towards Christmas. So those are my 3 cross stitch. And then I'm sure I'll have time to fit in my Prairie Schooler Santas, because I have a lot of those I still would like to make. And I have some little snowmen and kind of easier things. So we shall see. But the goal is to finish these 3 cross stitch and then see what I have left of the year. So now here's my 3 picks for knitting in 2021. The first thing I want to make, I'll put up a picture of it, and that is the Throwover by Andrea Mowry. This is a sweater I've been admiring for quite a while, and I actually bought yarn for it. In fact, all of my Make 3 knitting projects I already have yarn for. So that was a good reason for me to put it on the list and make sure that it just doesn't become stash. The Throwover by Andrea Mowry, I want to use this Magpie Nest Worsted Gray, or the color is Natural Twilight. I almost went for blue, but I find that I keep making blue sweaters. This is my super simple summer sweater that you've seen if you've watched this before. But I decided, okay, enough blue for now. And gray is such a nice color sweater to have. So the Throwover sweater, as you saw in the picture, is a yoke sweater and with color work on the yoke. And this is what I chose. I'm going to use these Spin Cycle yarns for the color work. And here's the gray. Okay. So see, there's 3 colors of the color work and then the gray sweater. And I think that will work. I think these colors will brighten up the gray, but not too much. So I'm looking forward to that. So I told you about the Magpie. The color The color for the color work is Spin Cycle Yarn. This one is called Nostalgia. The blue is Never Merry. I can't really see it. I think it's Never Weary. I'll put it down in the bottom. And this one is Heart Sign. So, looking forward to that. The next sweater is, I think, a very simple one, but it's a sweater that I think is very wearable and will be just a nice quick pattern to follow. And that is the Vanilla Sweater by Corinne Tomlinson. Corinne is from the Woolly Thistle, and they sell all kinds of nice woolly yarns. And you can see the Vanilla Sweater is a very easy throw-on sweatshirt-like shape. And I've heard from people that it is easy to make, goes quickly, even though it's a fingering weight. It's kind of a woolly yarn, which kind of, I don't know, I think goes quicker than a skinny sock type yarn. But what I decided to do was use a yarn that I purchased from the Woolly Thistle called Fennel Rama. I think it's a pretty sort of heather, or I don't know what you'd call it. Is that like a thistle or a heather color? I have a friend, Sue, who knit this sweater with this yarn, and she said it washes up nice. When you block it, it blooms. It has that nice soft bloom. It softens it up quite a bit. So I'm looking forward to seeing this, and I think that this is a nice wearable sweater. My last one, I was really so on the fence about which sweater to put on this list, and it still might change my mind. But because I've had this yarn for probably a couple of years now, and it's a pattern that I wanted to make for some time, I decided to go for this. So this is the Love Note sweater. The Love Note sweater is by Tin Can Knits. And here is the picture. And you can see it's a top down. It has that open lace work on the top. And what I decided to do was go with this Olan yarn. And what you do is you hold these two together. See, it's a gray that has sort of a brownish through it. You hold it together with this one, and this one's a mohair. You get sort of this nice fuzz as these colors blend together. But I think it's pretty, and everybody says this is such a quick sweater. It's kind of a crop sweater. I bought a little extra yarn so I could drop it down a little bit. But it's something that people they love so much that people make it in all different ways. Some people make it without the mohair. Some people make it without the open work, and just because they like the shape of the sweater, they make it following the directions for the Love Note. So I think this is a good one to add, and it'd be nice to see these colors together. And I also wanted to mention, as I was going through the 3 sweaters that I wanted to pick, I made so many sweaters last year that I'd been telling myself, I really want to I have so many hats and cowls and mittens and socks and small things, shawls and smaller things that I wanted to make. And I never got to them because I was just going crazy knitting sweaters. And it looks like I might do the same thing this year, but I really do intend to fit those small ones in between, or maybe as just another knitting project. I might, like a social knitting or a Zoom social knitting project or something like that. So what I did was clean up my Ravelry queue, and I have a few sweaters there, but I also have all my cowls and the socks and all those little things. They're all up on Ravelry. So I wanted to just invite anyone who is a Ravelry user to check it out on Ravelry. If you want to check out my queue, I'll put it down here at CTW Quilter. That's my name on Ravelry. You can look at my queue and check out what else I would like to be making over this next year, and maybe get some ideas. Also, while you're there, I should mention, while I was cleaning up, I also put a bunch of yarn in the for sale bin on Ravelry. So check that out if you're looking for something. It's perfectly good yarn, but it's yarn that I may have bought too much of. Maybe I used it and had some left and didn't think I needed it for anything. There's also some older yarns. There's some newer yarns. There's some yarns that I just decided to move on from, because you know how it is. You think you're going to use something, but then you see the squirrel and you have to chase a new squirrel. So check it out. I tend to put a lower than retail price, reduced it from what I paid. I will pay US postage because it doesn't, unless you're shipping a lot of yarn, it doesn't really cost that much to ship yarn. So check out my for sale bin on Ravelry if you have a chance, if you're looking for something. So here's my list of quilting projects for 2021. The first is something I've made before, but I made it so different than what I want to do now. And that is the Pinehurst pattern by Edya Sitar of Laundry Basket Quilts. You may recall I made the pinewood pattern in a small wall hanging with some batiks that I had. I'll pop a picture. I've shown you before, but I'll pop a picture of that little quilt on right now. What I wanted to do was what I originally intended to do with this pattern. I wanted to make it more light, this lighter background gives it a little more modern look and a lighter look. So I wanted to make it in greens and cream. So I have a whole stack of greens and cream that I've gathered. And this is what I want to use to make pinewood. And I'm undecided. I may make a bed-size quilt. I have a queen-size bed. I certainly have enough fabric for it because it's all kind of scrappy. So I may make a bed quilt. I may just make a very large wall hanging, sort of a lap size quilt as a wall hanging. I really enjoyed this pattern, and I'd like to make another one. My next quilting project on the list is the George and Gracie portrait, and I've talked about this before on episode 2, which was the portrait quilts episode. I talked about making portrait quilts of George and Gracie, who were our rescued chocolate labs, who were both gone, who we loved dearly into their old age. I haven't gotten far with this. I just have it drafted out. It's something that I do want to accomplish this year and get moving on that. With the portrait quilts, I tend to think about it way too much, and it takes me forever to figure out what I want to do, what fabrics I want to use. But once I get going on it, I just can't stop, and then I can't do anything else. So I'll get to George and Gracie this year. The third quilting project on my list is something I've wanted to do for a couple of years, and that is from Edya Sitar's Patches of Blue book, which, if you're a quilter and you like blue, get this book. It's a beautiful book. I have to say, sometimes I just sit down and I just look through it. The pictures are gorgeous. I'm really fond of blue and white quilts. The book has several different patterns in it for several different quilts. But the really great thing was, in 2018, she had a quilt along, sort of a block of the month project. And she does every year, but in 2018, she did one that I really loved. And that was, she took blocks from that Patches of Blue book, and she made a sampler quilt out of it. And that just, because I think I love every single quilt in that book. So making a sampler really spoke to me, because then it's like making every quilt in the book without having to do it. So here's just a printout of the sampler. If you look on the Laundry Basket Quilt website, look under her blogs and go to the archives, and you'll find these installments for the 2018 block of the month. But I've been wanting to do this for so long, and I've collected all these blues and creamy fabrics. I'm going to talk more about this project in another show because there's a lot more to the story. I put it sort of into a book, a little journal, and I'm going to I'll give you a quick peek. And what I've done is broke it down by month. And this is a picture from the website. This is how the first block for January. And then I made the block and I took a photo of it and put it in the book. And I write things like cutting measurements and things like that. And also, when I finished the block and what may have been going on at the time that I was making it. So this is going to become a year-long project, and I am really looking forward to it. And this is my January block. It's actually 4 blocks sewn together. So this is the first installment. And here I am, in the middle of January, and I already have it done. So I tell myself I need to work ahead, I think, because some of the months are a little more time-consuming than others. But I think this is, because it's something I've wanted to do for a couple of years, and it seems like a big project and, never quite get to it. I said, this is the best way to do it, is to just put it on this list and make myself do it. And also break it down so it's not such a big, overwhelming project. So now I'm going to talk to you about my giveaway. Now, I'm very excited about doing this. I love to see in other channels, they do a lot of giveaways. Now, these people have a lot of followers, a lot of subscribers. I don't, but I am so grateful for those that I have. And I appreciate it so much. I wanted to give you a gift for 2021, for this new year. Obviously, I'm not sponsored, but I took a dive into my stash as I was cleaning things up. And it's not a deep dive. These things are fairly new, but there are things that I find that I can part with knowing that they'll go to a good home. So because I'm all the stitches and I have so many different interesting crafts, I picked 3 things. I picked the 3 things I talk about: quilting, knitting, and this happens to be cross stitch. I'll explain a little bit more as I go as far as your job in this giveaway. Okay, so the first thing I'll talk about is, I'll go with knitting first. And by the way, when I say knitting, I refer to all yarn crafts. If you're a crocheter, it all applies. So here's my first giveaway. This is a skein of yarn from Opal. It's a sock yarn or fingering weight yarn, and it is, I'm looking for a color, but I don't see it. As you can see, it's sort of a reddish pink, maybe a little tinge of almost orange. It's not really orange, it's sort of more of a pinky red, pinky orange. It has a little bit of a hot pink streak in it. I thought it was so pretty. Make a great pair of socks or whatever it is that you knit or crochet. And then I thought, just to jazz it up a little, I had these little Opal 10-gram minis. And you can see they both have that same pinky orangey type pink or pinky red. And I thought they'd be really fun to add toes and heels or whatever it is you're doing. So this is one giveaway. If you're interested in winning this yarn, tell me, how does knitting or crochet bring joy to your life? And in the comment, use the word yarn. Okay? Now, if your thing is quilting or fabric in general, I have this package of Keepsake Quilting charm pack. It's a charm pack, a 5-inch charm pack. Let me take it out. Excuse the crinkles. So these are 50 5-inch charm fabrics. They're all green. And the reason I chose green is because spring is coming. I know it's only January, but spring is coming. I don't want to mess with it too much because I'll shred, I'll start shedding around the edges here. But there is dark green, there is light green, there's medium green, there's little off whites with tiny bits of green. 55-inch squares. It's a lot of fabric. I had some others and I cut into them and I used them for watercolor quilt. The other thing I did was actually make like a charity or comfort type quilt, a small child's quilt, just using these squares and putting like a muslin or a natural kind of color in between. And I, came out as a whole big quilt. So 55-inch squares of fabric is a lot of fabric. So if you're a quilter or a fabric lover, this is how you can win this prize. In the comments below, please tell me how quilting or fabric crafts bring joy to your life. Do you sense a theme here? And use the word fabric in your comment. Well, the next one is for, in this case, people who love cutting and cross stitch. First of all, I'm giving away this piece of 30 count linen. It is 30 count cocoa linen fabric. It is 8 by 12. You see? It's, I said I have issues with vision for some of these tiny linens. As I look at this, it's sort of a very open weave, this fabric. So I think that this might be a little easier on you. But I know a lot of people love this tiny stuff. I'm afraid I can't do it. But as part of this, I also am giving out this pattern. Let me take it out because the light is reflecting on it. So this is a Little House Needleworks pattern, and it's part of their Little Sheep Virtue series. And this one is called Hope. So it comes with the linen fabric and the pattern. And obviously I thought hope is a good message for today, for these times. And so that's why I chose this one. So if you want to win the Hope linen and pattern, please leave a comment below and then tell me this. How does needlework bring you hope? You can tell me why it brings you joy as well, but also tell me why it brings you hope. Because I think if you're a real needle person like I am, you can find hope in doing this work. So tell me how it brings you joy or brings you hope, and use the word hope in your response. So I hope you got all that. If you have any questions about anything, or you're not sure if you're doing something right, just put in a comment and I'll get back to you. I think that that's a good way to cover all the bases, all of the different crafty things that I love to do. I'd love to say that, you have to be subscribed in order to win, but I can't police that. So it's nice if you are, and thank you very much. But if you're not and you just want to win a prize, that's fine too. I'll number each of them as they come in. If you're a multi-crafter too, you can try to, leave a comment and win all 3. I will ship all, I will ship all over the world, but I'm not sure about that. I probably will ship all over the world. Like I would ship to Canada, I would ship to the UK. It's, right now, it's, it could take a long time to arrive, but I will ship anywhere because they're small packages. Leave the comments exactly like I described. I will number them as they come in, and then I will do a drawing and pick a number for each category. So I'll pick a number for the yarn and the cross stitch and the quilting all separately. If you win all three, that's great. That's fine. And what I'll do is announce it on my next show, which I'm planning for probably a couple of weeks from now. That will be episode 17. And I'm going to put an announcement on my Instagram account. You can find me on Instagram at this name below, CTW Quilter. And I'll put something on Instagram, so do follow me there. I'll announce it on YouTube, but I will also announce it on Instagram. You may or may not have a better chance of seeing it on Instagram if you don't get to the video, my next video. A couple weeks from now, I'll draw the names, and then we will figure out how to get in touch. Now, please, I know most of you know, I know there might be some people that don't use a lot of social media. Please don't put a personal email address or a mailing address on your comment below. And I know you probably know that, but I just wanted to mention that to those who aren't frequent users of social media. As long as I see your comment, I'll reach out to you, and then we can figure out how to get in touch. On Instagram is easy because there's you can do a direct message that nobody else sees. But don't worry about that. I'll figure it out. I'll find you, and we'll see what happens. Today's Something Old is something different. It's nothing I made, but it is something I collected. And at one time, I had a few old magazines, like really old magazines, and I love the pictures on the front were so pretty. And so I had one in particular that I wanted for my sewing room, and that is this one. I'm going to get rid of this circle light. Sorry about the reflection here, but this is a Needlecraft magazine from 1930. I had it framed and I hung it up. It's been hanging in my craft room, 2 different craft rooms through the years in different houses. But I thought she was so pretty and such a nice drawing. I keep thinking I need to investigate and see who this artist was, and I bet it's someone who you might even know the name, or it could be someone who did all their covers, or multiple magazine covers, and I need to check that out. But I'm going to try to get a better picture of it without a reflection so you can see how pretty it is. It's Needlecraft, the Magazine of Home Arts, from April of 1930. It says 10 cents. It costs 10 cents. As I looked at this today, I thought, what was the world like in 1930, So I just looked briefly to see who the president was in 1930. Of course, it was Herbert Hoover. And I also thought, 1930, my mother was 1 year old. She was born in 1929. So she was in April of 1929. So April 1930, she was just a 1 year old. But it makes you really appreciate, that this is still around. Well, I think I kept you long enough. But I didn't mean to mention my quilt behind me you haven't seen before. I think I'm going to show you in more detail next show. But this is a cotton background with wool applique snowman. I'm going to tell you about it more next time because I've covered a lot of ground and I've talked long enough. Hopefully you're still with me. And if you are, I'll see you next time. Please remember to leave your comments to win those prizes. I can't wait to read them. Tell your friends about it. Follow along on Ravelry. Follow along on Instagram. Until next time, I hope all of your stitches bring joy.